All right, we now welcome on to Inside TBT, former college basketball coach and current analyst for ESPN, and TBT genius and aficionado, Seth Greenberg. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it, and I hope you guys are safe and doing well.
Of course. Same to you.
We're hanging in there. We see the light at the end of the tunnel that is the sports season's coming. And forgive us for calling you coach, because once a coach, always a coach in my eyes. So we're going to call you coach, kind of whether you like it or not. So,
well, I did it for most of my life. So look, hey, coach is a good thing to be called. I've been called asshole and everything else. So I mean, coach, I can live with coach.
There you go. Coach is a great alternative. So, coach, our first question for you is, why doesn't Ohio State get College Game Day ever?
Well, they did get College Game Day a long while back, but Joey, if they knew you were around and you were going to give a great senior night speech that would go for a half hour and beat Andrew Dockage's speech, that maybe we'd show up. But the time that they did go, that was prior to my time on the show when I was still coaching. I guess they had a horrific turnout, absolutely horrific turnout with no ownership. So, one of the things you go to new venues, go to places that obviously have proven that they can embrace it. We went to Dayton this year. It was a blast. Went to Baylor this year. First time, it was a blast. But you always know what you're going to get when you go to a Kentucky and a Duke and a North Carolina. But we are trying to go to new venues. But I guess the last time they went to Ohio State, it was not a good scene.
I don't find that hard to believe, unfortunately. Unless you're coming for the college football game day, it just can't live up to it. That's unfortunate, but we'll always have the great turnout for the football, but that's obviously a whole different story.
Yeah, it is a different story, and their show is 3 hours, and it's a little bit different. But look, I'm a big Chris Holtman fan. I think the world of him as a person. I think he's a terrific coach, and I think he's doing great things, and he stands for all the right things to me. I mean, he genuinely loves and cares about his players. He cares about the program, and he cares about doing things the right way. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, we like him too. Joey obviously played for him, but we've interviewed him, and he was a really great interview. Great dude. Sticking with the college basketball theme, I know it's now months gone, but who kind of going into the tournament were you thinking was going to be the team that maybe runs away with the thing?
Yeah, there were a couple that I thought were playing at an elite level. Kansas was playing at an elite level, no doubt about it. The guard play really, Dotson was terrific. Udoka's a movable object. I thought their big athletic wings, Abaji, those guys were playing really well. I thought the Michigan State at the end of the season was playing really well. Xavier Tillman, the development of his game. Cassius could see the finish line. With everything that team went through, his ability to see the finish line, I think, was important. You could see it in his body language, with his joy. Rocket Watts gave him a guy that could take some pressure off of him. That team was getting better. Gonzaga was a team that all along had a chance to win it all. Size, depth, athleticism, they could invert. They were better defensively than people thought. Gonzaga was a team that were, no doubt about it, could have made a run. And then there were a lot of teams that were, not great teams, but very good teams that could get on a run. I mean, even Dayton was a team, that could have gotten on a run. I'm not sure they would have, but they could have gotten on a run. I mean, they were for real. They could really defend. They played with 2 point guards, so they didn't turn it over. They had a go-to guy that obviously was very good. They had great role players. Mike Sill and those guys were really, really good role players. I thought they were very good. I thought Baylor was good. I don't think they were healthy down the stretch because their backcourt was really dangerous. Butler, terrific. Amacio Teague, very, very good. They had guys that embraced roles, but they weren't healthy, and that was a little bit of a concern. Kentucky was on an uptick some and had a legitimate chance. So I thought there were more teams that had a chance to get to the Final Four. More teams that had a DNA. The DNA of Final Four teams are veteran teams. That's just the way it is. Veteran teams that have shared experiences, that have a toughness, that roles are well defined, and the system is intact. So I thought this year could have been an incredible Final Four, but when we look back at it, it's going to be a year that will be obviously missing a lot. But you think about Rudy Gobert, if he didn't have that positive test that brought so much attention to the virus, who knows what could have happened. So it was a very, very difficult time. The last team I would have said, Florida State was a sneaky good team. Now, they weren't even sneaky good. They were really good. And they were a team that could have made a run as well. But look, we're in a very, very difficult place in our society. We're in a very difficult place, obviously, with the virus, and everyone is anxious. I would just say that if we could care and communicate better and have greater compassion for each other, whether it's because of through the virus or just society, we'd all be a lot better. When everyone says we're all in this thing together, I would like to see a time when we're legitimately all in this thing together.
And I think that's one great thing about sports is that it, not in the most perfect way, but it brings people together. And I think that hopefully stuff like the TBT, the NBA coming back, whether it takes people's minds off of things or it brings people together, I think it will be, a huge positive moving forward, just to have that other normal part of your life kind of back.
Yeah, it'll be a good diversion. There's no doubt about it. It'll be a good diversion. It'll give us a sense of normalcy. It doesn't impact the systemic racial issues that we've had in our country for years and years and years. It doesn't resolve the bad cops that have done things that are just deplorable and depressing and unconscionable. I mean, I can't even like when you see some of these videotapes. The sad thing is I have two former players that are police officers. Eric Brown was a great player at the University of Miami, and Keith Armstrong, who played for me at Pitt, Michigan kid, and they're on the front lines. They're two African-American guys that were good players and great people, and it hurts them as much as it hurts everyone else. But they really, in their heart of hearts, they think there are police officers that are doing a lot of good things, but we have a systemic issue in our country, and it's got to be addressed. And it's got to start in the community. It's got to start one conversation at a time. It's got to start with people caring about each other and communicating with each other and having compassionate for each other's situations.
I think something that is incredible on your part is you have such a large reach, obviously, and between when stuff originally happened with coronavirus and the stuff going on now, you've kind of definitely used your reach to reach people and to talk to people. So I think that's really cool, and especially with something with the tournament being canceled for coronavirus, like you easily could have been upset about it. You easily could have shown that you were angry rather than knowing that it was the right thing that had to be done. There was kind of split people throughout the country saying maybe they should have kept playing, maybe they shouldn't. So I think it's awesome on your part, definitely, to see, no matter what the issue is, you being vocal and out there, because there's a lot of people who choose not to do that with a similar reach as your own.
Well, the truth will set you free. And, like I always thought, I coached for 36 years, and I have to at times critique my friends. My friends. The running joke is right before we did a game day at Kentucky. Kentucky played South Carolina, played horrifically, and I said, look, if they continue to play like this, they don't even like each other. They're not sharing the ball. They're not playing to their strengths. I said, they are really going to struggle. And I had to go and then do game day at Kentucky that Saturday, and I get there on Thursday, and John Calipari is one of my dearest friends, and he goes, I need you to do me a favor. I said, what's that? He goes, I want you to speak to my team. So what do you need to speak to your team? He goes, honestly, I said, I know they're all pissed off at me. He goes, no, hell, I know one thing about you. You have no agenda. You didn't say anything that trying to be hurtful. You said stuff that I'm saying to our team in our locker room. So I went into the locker room, and Coach introduced me. I knew all those guys because I worked Cal's fantasy camp. And so I just said, I grabbed Kevin Knox. Kevin, I said, how many points you scored in high school? He goes, I don't know, Coach. I said, you know exactly how many points you scored in high school. Who are you kidding? He goes, you're at like 2,600 or whatever. And so that dude's got to get shots. All right, here's the deal. That dude's got to get shots. And Shea Gilgis, I see Coach is giving you the ball. It's your team. Run your team. And I just went right through it. I said, look, I love you guys. I don't have any agenda on any team. Like, I love when people come up and he's a Duke hater. K kicked his ass so many times. He's a Duke hater. I beat K 4 times, twice when he was number one. Screw that. I mean, no, I just say what I see. I mean, like, I don't have an agenda. I have great admiration for them. I have great admiration for any coach that's done it that long and been that successful. I mean, but I have an obligation, and I have an obligation to look at the game through the prism of a coach and give my opinions. And that's what I try to do. I have zero, literally, I don't hate any school. I like certain schools more because, like, Tom Izzo's a dear friend. Coach Holtman's a good friend. I mean, I can go Shaka Smart is a dear friend. I mean, but I mean, my job is they hired me to have an opinion through the prism of what 36 years of coaching. And that's what I do.
So
I, for one, love the coach's opinion in terms of an analyst perspective, because it kind of reinforces what we hear in our locker room every single day most of the time, and it always helps from a player's perspective when someone from the outside comes in and they go, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how you can fix it. You guys are great. You guys are here for a reason, yada, yada, yada. And you walk out of there and we all go, well, shoot, that's what Coach Holtman has been telling us for 3 weeks. Like, we should have listened to him 3 weeks ago. And that
You're right.
It almost never fails.
Well, that's what you try to do. And then that's the difference between a guru and a coach. You have a lot of gurus that are analysts that never call a timeout and that have not been in that situation. Don't understand what you guys are going through. Like what you guys what a team goes through during the course of a season, away from basketball, whether it's a guy struggling in a class, a guy having a problem with his girlfriend, a jealousy within the locker room if you don't have someone that's coaching the locker room, a player who has something going on in his family. There are so many different things that go on during the course of a season. There's so much static that understanding that, like, the other team's also trying to win also. Like, the other team's got 13 guys on scholarships too. And it's easy, guy insiders or whatever you want to call them. They really do not understand the day-to-day grind and pressure that you guys are under as players, and how coaches try to help navigate and I guess the new word of the day is mitigate, the distractions and keep your team in a good place. Because let's face it, you play in the Big Ten, you play in the ACC, you play in the SEC, you're going to have some roadblocks and detours. And when you have roadblocks and detours, it impacts your locker room, or it impacts the people, because once they leave your locker room, there's static around everyone. I don't care who it is. And dealing with that is a big part of the job. And I mean, you guys went through it this year at Ohio State. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, I mean, it's hard. So I just try to, most important things, to be honest, be fair, and talk through the prism of, I coached 22 years as a head coach, 36 years in coaching. I've got my brains beat in the ACC. I coached in the Big East. I coached in the Conference USA. I have a little understanding about what it is that makes the game so difficult for the length of the season.
So obviously, as you just mentioned, you have extensive amounts of coaching experience. I think there's a lot of TBT teams that could benefit from having Coach Greenberg's on the sideline. You think any chance we ever see something like that in TBT?
I don't think so. I'll call those games. I might coach again. I turned down a job this year, but I'm not sure I'm going to coach in TBT. But my brother almost coached, actually, a team a year ago. He coaches overseas, and he was general manager in Philadelphia 76ers that drafted Allen Iverson. He was the assistant GM of Portland Trailblazers with Drexler, and he coached in college for a long time. No, I like my seat for the TBT right now. It's pretty cool. And I tell you, what I do love, and I know Virginia Tech was actually going to think of trying to have a team in the tournament. The two things I love about the TBT, because there's a kind of a diversity within the TBT. There's obviously the alumni teams, which is such a cool thing, because it gives those guys to put that uniform on one more time and have that shared experience. And you could see the joy that those guys have when they do that, win or lose. whether it's Carmen's crew who won it or whether it's, you see the Colorado team at 1 year, you see Notre Dame won it 1 year. But I mean, the Marquette team and how passionate they are about, playing for each other. Tom Crean came to Atlanta to watch them play one time. And then you've got the teams with a cause. All right. So teams with cause like the Team Challenge ALS is Sean Marshall, who's an incredible guy, just an incredible guy. But a lot of guys from the Inland Empire. And then, obviously the different causes to me, Sideline Cancer and their mission is just incredible, the Griffith family. So I just think and then you've got what I call the overseas elite, which is obviously the Celtics or the Lakers of the TBT with, I guess DJ Kennedy being, kind of like the LeBron James of the TBT. But the thing is great. The games are competitive. The Elam ending makes the end of the games incredible. And one thing for ESPN, they always say you want to be memorable. I don't think I ever called it a TBT game that wasn't memorable.
Yeah. I mean, we're super excited about it. I know the official teams and rosters are not 100% set yet, but I actually do have a little bit of breaking news for you that just happened 10 minutes ago. So 10 minutes ago, War Tampa, which is a team.
Which is the Auburn team.
The Auburn team.
Basically, yeah.
Auburn and Florida, they just announced that they actually added Fletcher McGee to their team.
Oh.
And we just had – Buckets. We had Fletcher on last week. So what do you think about that acquisition?
Well, look, you need shot makers in the thing. There's no doubt about it. You need people that can stretch the defense. You got to have guys who can deliver him the basketball and how they'll play. But, I mean, that's a great look. Joe Johnson was a pretty good addition also to overseas elite. You talk about kicking it up a notch. You got to understand now. That's a great addition. I mean, like War Tampa, that's a terrific addition. But team overseas elite is ridiculous because their basketball IQ on that team, they play because those guys have played so many games and because of the experiences they've had overseas, the maturity that they have, those guys play great basketball. And now Team Hines has kind of adopted that same philosophy of getting really high level, guys from overseas. So, I mean, you've got, Eberlin Drive, is a team that has really, really athletic and big time. You got NBA dudes playing on these teams. You got the teams that are going to win it are going to have guys that could be successful in the NBA. And that's, it's a high level of basketball, man. It's a high level of basketball.
So last year, Joey and I were both at the Final Four in Chicago at Wintrust Arena when Carmen's crew ended up winning. And Jonathan Simmons was on one of the teams, and he was like 2 years removed from averaging close to 20 points in the NBA with the Spurs and the Magic, and he was like shut down. I think he went like 0 for 12 or something like that in the game. And it's just crazy because you forget that these guys who play overseas are still elite players and elite defenders.
And mature. And they're high character. They're mature. They have an understanding. But you guys got Aaron Kraft. He's making his swan song, right? I mean, this is the last Aaron Kraft's last hurrah, right?
That's what he says. I mean, like every single year, it's the same thing. I'm playing this year, and then I'm going to retire. But apparently,
what is Conor McGregor at a TBT or what?
Exactly. he's like Brett Favre. He just retires and unretires. But the one thing that's different is he's not leaving Ohio State at least. But I find it hard to believe. I grew up. Aaron Kraft was my favorite player ever. And now he's my good friend, which is very, very weird and funny at the same time. And he still tells us he'll tell John Diebler the same thing that he tells Andrew. He'll just say, "Look, this is my last year," and then boom, out of nowhere, I guess I can play one more. It's unbelievable that he's Iron Man. He could play for as long as he wanted to.
Is he in playing shape?
I sure think so. I think he might never not be in playing shape. I think he's just built that way.
So here's the deal. So if you play pickup with him, does he foul all the time?
First of all, he wouldn't waste his time guarding me, so I wouldn't know. But So what's funny about it is I was being the walk-on. I was always the guy that was, if the former guys needed an extra body, I was on that team, which was great because I never lost. But not so good because I never got to play with my teammates. So I, of course, thought he never fouled because he was on my team. But you ask Andrew Dockich, he might say something differently.
I hear you. By the way, you have a manager, Richie Felder's son. What's Felder? What's at Ohio State? What's his first name? A good friend of mine. His dad's an agent. Is helping Coach Holtman.
I must have just missed him.
Yeah. He was there this year.
Yeah. I just missed him then. But all those new guys, they're all awesome. Our managers are just, some of my closest friends, best people managers. In sports.
I just had a Zoom call with all my teams, not every player, but like about 30 or 40 guys. And my former managers at the 3 schools I was a head coach, they arranged it. It was great.
Wow, that's very cool.
Managers are brilliant.
They're always good for that because there's no chance any of my teammates could organize that. That's for sure.
No, there's no chance a guy that was head coach for 22 years could organize that. I can promise you that.
Yeah, Joey is 1 year going on 2 years removed from playing at Ohio State, but the way he talks, you'd think he's still on the team right now. So, I don't blame him.
The way he talks, Andrew Dockich, you'd think he's been there for redshirted. He's been there for 5 years. So what's the difference?
I think the greatest thing about Andrew, and it's really unbelievable that he gets brought up on every single episode that we ever tape. But the greatest thing about him is he is the prototype for the converted Buckeye. People talk about it all the time. Like, you can come over to the dark side that is Ohio State, blah, whatever. You can do whatever you want. But once you're here, you're going to realize that you were meant to be here. And he is 100,000. His allegiance to John Beilein will never leave. He loves Beilein with all his heart, which he gave him the chance to play college basketball. Like, I feel the same way about Coach Mata. But at the same time, like, it was very true that the first year he was on the team, he's rooting for Ohio State to beat Michigan in football. That's when you're like, all right, we got him.
Love my man, Junior. That's my guy.
Something that is not talked about enough about Andrew Dockich, he's one heck of a GM, and he's putting together a good TBT team for this summer, a bunch of young guys on Big X. Do you think a team like that could potentially
young teams can't win?
Well, absolutely not.
Can't win. It's like, maybe if they bring Calipari in the coach team. Can't win. And like, those dudes don't know what they don't know. And like, here's the thing: every level you go up, there's an adjustment, and like, there's a reason that if you look at the last 4 or 5 Final Fours, they were basically veteran teams. No, can't win. Hey, Junior, sorry. I don't care who's on. Is he getting Duncan Robinson to take some time off to knock down some jumpers for him?
More than Duncan Robinson.
Who's he getting on his team? Who's he getting on his team?
Well, he's got Caleb Wesson and Nick Ward. That's a formidable front court, obviously.
Yeah, is Nick in shape?
It's a question for Nick, not for me.
Yeah.
So
you got to have guards. In the TBT, you got to have guard play.
Yeah, and if you have Andrew Dockich as your starting point guard, it's safe to say that.
Is Andrew playing?
He's playing.
All right, they're done. Tell him I said so. I'm going to speak to his dad. Later, so I just killed him.
He will be happy that you mentioned that they're a young team, though. That'll even out you saying that he's washed up, but you called him young. That'll be good.
Yeah. No, but young teams can't win.
So a lot of new guys are joining. Nate Robinson announced he's playing in TBT. Glenn Big Baby Davis.
Big Baby.
Yeah, Big Baby. Joey and I on the last episode, we talked about some guys that we would want to see in TBT. We said like Tyler Hansbrough, Sam Decker, guys like that.
Ooh,
but then we also said like Nick Young and J.R. Smith, like guys that are still trying to play but are not playing in the NBA. Do you have anyone off the top of your head that you would love to see in TBT?
Well, who knows what happens with the season? I think Boeheim's Army needs to get mellow.
That's what I said. The same thing. That's so funny.
Boeheim's Army. Let's get mellow. Let's get this thing done. Come on now. I'm just looking at it. I might have a little insight. I can't share it with you guys, but of who's in and who's out.
We have that too. Don't worry.
We got that too.
I would think Carter can't play for West Virginia if West Virginia, West Virginia makes it. I mean, Men of Mackey, I don't know. I mean, I know who's not going to play Men of Mackey. Matt Harms. No Joe Eastern.
No, Joe Eastern was my AU teammate. How about that? Small world.
I really like the guy, but I mean, I don't understand the transferring. Like, go find a jump shot.
Yeah,
I think he can defend. He can rebound. He just some things I don't understand these days.
What's amazing to me about him is he was in my high school conference, and all he did was shoot. That's all he did. He shot and he dunked. That's all he did. And now it's just unbelievable. But that's a whole different story. I could talk about transfers for the rest of my life. My incoming freshman class, 6 guys.
The whole thing transferred. Yeah.
All of them transferred. It's the only guy left.
I was with Coach Mata the summer before his last year, and we actually spent a lot of time together. And he just said, I can't have guys around that just aren't going to buy in. It was killing us. We're not a good team because no one really is committed to each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's an understatement. It was the me, the selfish agenda that just it kills in any sport, but like in basketball, the ultimate team game, it's impossible to win. You better be the most talented team to ever exist if you want to compete. Because other than that, I mean, it's just
hard. And for a guy like Coach Mata, he's such a great coach and such a good guy.
Yeah,
great guy.
You go from guys. The Carmen's Crew team that's the gold standard of teams that play together, chemistry, buy-in, best friends, want nothing but the best for the team and themselves. And then 4 years later, it's just the opposite end of the spectrum. It's just insane.
It's hard.
We talked with Ryan Mikesell last week too, and he kind of spoke a little bit about if the Red Scare team is in and they win. He said it would feel like a little bit of closure, a little bit of redemption because they didn't get to play in the tournament, but they still are winning a tournament. What do you think when you hear something like that?
Well, if they could win without Obi Toppin, that'd be a hell of a thing. But look, what they had. Here's the way I look at all this stuff, and I've done a bunch of talks to some high school graduating classes and some different teams in the last 3 months. And you can't let the virus take away from all the incredible moments that you had. You can't let the virus take away from those shared experiences you had with your teammates. You can't take away from the virus, take away from how a group of guys came together and did special things. So would it be incredible? It would be incredible. But they should, if I was them, I would say that sounds great, but I wouldn't look at it that way because they shouldn't define themselves by anything but what they actually accomplished. And if you look at what they accomplished as a group and where they took the program, and you talk about a team that was together, you could tell when a team really loves each other and appreciates their coaching staff. We were at Dayton for that last game day. It was beautiful. I mean, it was really, really something special. Those guys cared about each other and respected each other and trusted each other and trusted Coach Grant and the rest of the coaching staff. I mean, it was really it was a great lesson that if people drop their guards and actually just look into each other's hearts, that you can do amazing things. And that team was really good. But I would say that sounds good. It makes a good sound bite, but I wouldn't do anything to understand that what they accomplished and the experiences they had, the success they had, all right, that's what defines that group, not the virus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that in a perfect world, to get some closure would be a positive thing, obviously. But at the same time, it was clear that Ryan knew that group was so unbelievably special and nothing could change that.
Incredible group. But
it would be fun to cherry on top of his technically not his college basketball career, but basically is, because he hasn't been a pro yet. Be nice to put the cherry on top, winning the championship. Do you have a short list of teams that you think can win it all?
I think Bayham's Army. I mean, if everyone shows up, they could end up with 3 or 4 NBA players that are veteran players. Now, I think they lost a little toughness. I love my man Diendorf. I think that's my guy. I love his passion. I mean, I think quite honestly, I mean, the list of teams, there's probably 10 teams that have a legitimate shot. I mean, how do you go against Carmen Screw, overseas leader? I mean, Boeheim's Army is going to be very good. I mean, Huggs is going to coach West Virginia. I mean, come on now.
We're hoping that happens too.
I mean, if that happens, forget about it. I mean, all bets are off. I mean, he will be killing those guys.
He's going to have the treadmill on the side of the court ready for them to run on it when they turn the ball over.
But I'll tell you one thing, like the veteran teams, like the overseas league, they'll be able to handle pressure. But like teams that haven't practiced together or don't have a little bit of a real good feel, they'll turn people over. I mean, they'll turn people over. But the thing is that the level of play in the TBT is really at a high level. Like it's really, really at a high level. Like last year I did the D3 team. I mean, they were really good. I mean, they're well coached. So, I mean, to me, it's the level of basketball. Like the level of basketball, not the players, although in a lot of ways the players are as good as the NBA Summer League. Easy.
Absolutely.
Easy. So, and it's good. You know what it does? It's going to kick off sport in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's going to be prior to the NBA kicking back off. It's going to be prior to probably Major League Baseball, the most foolish sport in the history of life. I don't know what's going to happen with hockey, but I think it's going to, I think it's going to capture people's imaginations, and then they're going to get into the Elam ending. Then people are going to see how good these guys are, and how competitive they are, and how important it is. And it's, hey, it's one, you got one chance, man, one chance. And let's give the TBT credit. I mean, the precautions they're taking, it's incredible. I mean, at the expense that they're obviously there is a risk. Let's be honest, but in terms of how they're going about it and their protocol, they've crossed every T, dotted every I. No, like we won't be. I'm going to be broadcasting from Indianapolis, or maybe even from my house. We're doing them as Remy games, I think, right now. So, we won't even be there, which makes sense because if you've got, let's face it, you got 24 teams, you could potentially get exposed to a very large number of people. So we do Remy games now. I mean, I haven't done a Remy game since an international game, but Remy game is basically you're in a booth in a building, and you get the feed, and you're watching the game on a big TV. So we'll see what happens with that. I do think they should pump in crowd noise
for the TBT or for all
TBT
sports?
and college basketball. I think if college basketball starts without fans, I think that there should be a director of fandom, and there should literally because like coach, as you guys know, and Joe, I mean, like I used to pump in crowd noise in practice.
Oh my, we never practiced without it.
Yeah, so I mean, like to create that, and I'll tell you, and it'll take a little heat off the coaches when we get to college basketball because you don't want people to hear everything you're saying to an official.
No.
I mean, even the most reserved coach say shit to officials that you really don't want to hear. So I mean, I think there will be to try to create a home atmosphere. I mean, like, look, it'll be the obligation of the home team to handle it. I do think that TV, although they say it can cheapens the broadcast, I think TV could do that. I mean, they could create virtual people in the stands. What do you think? Like you guys played in that tournament with Kentucky and Carolina, the Classic.
Yeah.
And all those logos on the floor, they're all virtual logos. I mean, you could put virtual people in the stands and just program them. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Let's face it, the thing we all hope happens is some of these very, very brilliant people all over the world, as these vaccines come into play and hopefully get into phase 2 and phase 3, we find out there's a cure for the virus or at least an antivirus. So, I mean, that's let's face it, that's what we all need because that's the most important thing. Because I mean, healthy people are dying. I mean, it's not just something that's happening in nursing homes. It's not just things that are happening to the elderly. And our country is opening up, and there's more cases because there's more testing. But the one thing, nothing has changed except that people understand wearing a mask and keeping distance. Nothing's changed from the day that the NCAA tournament or ACC tournament or Big Ten tournament was canceled. Nothing's changed in terms of the disease.
Yeah, and obviously finding a vaccine seems to be one of the craziest and most impossible things to do, just the process of that. I feel like if Nick Elam was a doctor, he would be able to figure something out because that guy is a genius. And we had him on the show, and he is just thinks of so many things that no one has ever thought of before.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. And Nick Elam is a smart guy, but I think there's some dudes a whole lot smarter than him that are working on this thing. And I look, you just got to hope. I mean, you got to hope that and pray that, the world is working on it. And in general, the world is working together to find cures. And there's a tremendous amount of money is being invested in it for the good of humanity. And that's, it goes back to what we started at: humanity, compassion, caring, communication. Those are the things our world has got to get back to. For sure, those are the things our country has to get back to.
For sure.
Let me just flip the subject just a bit and ask you, if you were commissioner of the NCAA, if they invented this new rule where you were the czar of the NCAA,
Phyllis would be really pissed.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. I feel like you got to be a guy that has something in mind that said, if I was put in charge, that's the first thing I'm changing.
Well, the interesting thing is the prism that I look at things through. Like, first of all, name, image, and likeness, I have no problem with it. I like the Olympic model because I don't think everyone thinks that there's going to be all kinds of revenue and it's not going to be like that. Very wealthy, successful people don't just throw money around. That's just the way it is. Will there be for the Zion Williamson and those people? Sure. But I'll tell you, like guys like you get to run a camp. That's great. Can you get a free slice of pizza? I don't know. I mean, might be able to maybe do an appearance, do a bar mitzvah, do a birthday, do a one-day clinic. But there's no major corporation that's going to take an 18-year-old that's on a college campus, 18-year-old on a college campus, and make them and potentially have them represent their brand. You have to vet these people before you do that. But so I'd have no problem with name, image, and likeness. I do think that the whole FBI investigation, everything that's gone on. I feel for, like, say, Oklahoma State. Those kids weren't there when those violations occurred. So if everyone's complaining about the penalty, but there's got to be some type of rules in place and some type of legislation. Now, if you don't think that's right, then you've got to hit schools in a pocketbook so hard. Like NC State shouldn't, if they get after their notice of allegations, if they get accused of and convicted of these penalties, they cleaned house. New staff, new athletic administration, they've cleaned house. But you know what? The university is still the university. So I don't think any of the NC State players should be penalized because it was literally, they were like freshmen in high school. But the university should, and they should hit them hard in the pocket. Hard in the pocket. But, I mean, the Oklahoma State thing's a hard thing because you're saying they didn't get a competitive advantage. None of the players are on their team. We really don't know that. We don't know that. But I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with, obviously, LSU, what's going to happen with, Auburn, what's going to happen with Arizona, what's going to happen with a number of different schools. I mean, this is going to be really interesting. In terms of the czar, I would give coaches more access to their players. Not saying they have to do, but more access to their players. Number two is John Calipari came up with an idea for actually fall basketball or late summer basketball. Create these old mini tournaments You have your players on campus. You're working with them a couple of hours a week. Give them something to look forward to at the end of the year. You're going head, it'll change now. You're going head to head with baseball. It's before football starts. How about like August creating regional tournaments all over the country? That would be great for basketball. It would be great to make our sport a 12-month sport. Football's a 12-month sport. College football's a 12-month sport because of spring football, because the recruiting period and the late recruiting period. We've got to find a way to create a conversation about college basketball for 12 months in a positive way. I think Cal's idea for that, because we see, like, I did Kentucky's trip to the Bahamas, and I mean they were sold out. They had the crazy Big Blue Nation. They were sold out. It was great. It was a great atmosphere. So why do we limit that to just once every 4 years? Why don't we give the ability to, at the end of the summer, create these mini tournaments in regions maybe? Now, you're going to see a lot of things happen now because of the virus. You're going to see a lot more local non-conference games. You're going to see, quite honestly, you're going to see guarantee numbers that paying out to schools go down. And you're also going to see, and we've seen it now, the mid-major jobs are going to become impossible because the mid-major jobs, because leagues are going to 20 games, there's fewer opportunities. I'm not a fan of the one-time transfer exception. Me personally, I think there's lessons to be learned, and I think that what a good rule would be: if a coach leaves, you can leave, because everyone says, "Well, the coach can leave anytime." Well, every time I left a job, I paid a lot of money in my buyout, a lot of money. All right. I think if a player leaves prior to the end of the semester, I mean, it's just not right. So I think that if coach leaves or his coach is fired, there should be a 2-week period after the new coach gets hired for that coach to have a chance to re-recruit those guys. If not, guys should be able to transfer and be eligible immediately. But if not, I think players, they should be. I wouldn't even call it a penalty, because I mean, like a lot of times guys transfer, it's the best experience in their world. They get to learn the system, they get to understand and get acclimated to it, they get to develop relationships, which then gives them a better opportunity to be successful. I know Matt Painter at Purdue, he did this whole study on transfers. It's amazing. Like, guys transfer. No one's transferring and playing in the NCAA tournament hardly. No one's transferring, going to school and making it to the NBA. I've got the numbers over here somewhere in my stack. It's unbelievable the lack of success in terms of big picture that transfers have. I'm not against transfers. I think, hey, sometimes you got to leave, but sometimes you got to fight through some stuff and face some adversity. Adversity visits the strong, it lives with the weak. I mean, that kind of gives you the essence of who you are. So I think that if coaches leave or coaches get fired, guys should be able to transfer and be eligible immediately. And I've always thought that, even when I was coaching.
Here's what my two takeaways from your czar session. My two takeaways are: number one, that tournament in August is the best idea I think I've ever heard in terms of new additions to the sport, because I remember my first 3 years, those summers, the only light at the end of the tunnel for the summer is going home, for a month. There's nothing else to be excited for besides the 1 year that we went overseas, which you're preparing to go overseas, which is a blast and the coolest thing ever. But if you were preparing for a tournament or preparing for games the same way you are in the fall, you're preparing for your first game, I mean, that would make it makes too much sense. I mean, it's the same thing as spring football. It just makes too much sense. And then the second takeaway is, I'm very grateful that I have exhausted my eligibility, because my bar mitzvah appearances have skyrocketed. So
yeah, I can understand that. I mean, like, I'm telling you what, the bar mitzvahs, birthdays, I mean, guys will make money on that. Softball players, girl softball players are going to make a ton. Girl soccer players, they can run camps. They have an opportunity to monetize themselves. Will certain guys get shoe contracts? Very, very few. People the car dealers aren't even giving college coaches cars.
Right.
They're not throwing around cars. So, I mean, teams that cheat will figure out a way to cheat. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I don't like the argument that people say that, well, the quarterback on the football team is going to get a car. What about the women's golfer? It's like, well, she'll get something somehow, some way, but it's not about that. It's not. It's hard to compare those two scenarios. I don't like that argument.
it's going to be hard in the locker room because here's the biggest problem. You know it. You experienced a tough locker room this year. Every guy in the locker room is going to have an agent.
Yeah.
So those agents are going to be working against each other. And then those agents are going to be filling those players' heads with static, which is going to take away from their real thing is to play well, to be a winning player, to work on your craft so that you have a chance to chase your dream. And the last thing is these agents also don't understand, because what they do understand is that the league they're trying to get to is a very exclusive club. The NBA is a very exclusive club. It is not for everyone. Too many times these players think that it's a rite of passage and, well, I'm just going to go to the league. No, you're not. That's just the way it is. I mean, the numbers bear it out. 60 guys get drafted. 40 of them are going to be, 20 of them are going to be international players. That leaves 40 spots. The two-way contracts this year, because of the virus, some of those two-way contracts are going to be taken up with guys coming back from Europe. You watch, because some guys won't want to go back overseas. And they'll come back and play two-way for less money.
The argument of locker room troubles is, as a player, what would scare me. Because I think, yes, agents obviously a problem, but I think also the wrong guy, obviously, and the right guy with the right mindset is just going to be thinking about playing basketball. But the wrong guy could see, Jay Sean Tate could see Keita Bates-Diop getting some kind of deal that he thinks he deserves as well, and that could make them butt heads when they were best friends and roommates for 3 years, and now all of a sudden, they hate each other. Or vice versa. I mean, I was, and Andrew can kind of vouch for me, like I was kind of the face of the program, which is bizarre as the last guy on the bench. So what would people think when I'm getting all these deals? This guy doesn't even touch the court, so it could be an issue. I think I played on teams where it would have been an issue. I think I played on teams where it wouldn't have been an issue. But I think
it's very delicate.
There will be tons of teams that run into those problems, because the world we live in today, it's already who's got the most followers, it's just crazy.
It's going to make it hard. It's going to make it difficult. And like, these are really good guys that, because of the pressures, because there's so much, the one thing is, and you understand, Joey, there's so much pressure on players that they never really take the chance to really enjoy the college experience.
100%.
Because and then it's like the NBA Academy. Those kids are going to have a void, because it's going to be, what happens if you go to the NBA Academy and you're the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th guy? What happens if you go to the NBA Academy and then all of a sudden you're not that good, and you don't get drafted? Where do you go back to? Like, what are you a part of? And that's going to be a concern down the road. So, hey, look, the world's got big issues, the virus, but the TBT is ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And kind of my last question for you, with everything with the Elam ending, of all the guys in college this year that either are getting ready for another year or go into the NBA, who's one guy that you think would be the most capable of scoring all of the points in the Elam ending?
All of the points. Wow.
All of them. Whether it's eight,
you can't pick Andrew Dockich, and you can't.
I'll tell you one thing. I would say who would have a hand in all the points would be Cassius Winston, because the ball is going to be in that dude's hands.
No doubt about it.
There's no doubt about it. I would say, that's a non-debatable one, right? There'll be some type of ball screen, and there'll be some type of action on the backside, and he will either hit a floater, a three, or he'll throw a one-hand Euro pass cross-court diagonally for an open shot. So he would be one that would be really good. I'll tell you a player that is similar. There's actually two players that are similar, both on the same team. Sadiq Bey would be a tough matchup in the Elam ending, because you can move him in the action a lot of different places for Villanova. He would be a very, very good Elam ending player because of his versatility. Devin Dotson would be really good because of his speed and his ability to get out in the open court, and also his ability to defend and create a turnover. Those guys would be pretty good. Jared Butler at Baylor would be a guy, because the ball's in his hands, and he is a tough dude. And what about our guy Garzilla? I mean, Garzella's got to touch the ball every time down the floor.
That's a great one. I think you
and he can make free throws.
Yeah, I think that's a great one just because the Elam ending, the strategy. Obviously, you need guards, no doubt about it. But the strategy of throwing it inside for the Elam ending is it's just different because you just need to score. It doesn't matter how you score or how quick you score. You just need to score.
You got to throw that bad boy inside, and you got to get to the foul line is what you got to do. All those people that even have leads going into it and think they're going to go for the quick dagger and the quick three.
Nuh-uh.
Put pressure on the defense. Boom, punch that thing inside, play downhill, get touches in the paint.
Yeah, I think the two guys that I would add, and obviously I'm not a guru yet like you.
You're working on it, though.
I'm working on it. The two guys I would add, and you tell me what you think. Marcus Howard, that might be my number one guy besides Cassius.
Yeah, Marcus Howard. Never sort of shined, didn't like.
And then Miles Powell. But those are easy. Those are too easy.
I love Miles Powell. What a great kid. Miles Powell is an incredible kid. I mean, I went and watched him practice a couple of days. Love Miles Powell. I absolutely love. And Marcus Howard. I think Marcus Howard's harder to play with.
Yeah.
When Marcus Howard gets going, he has complete tunnel vision.
I agree, and that's why I love Cassius is because he gets going off of other dudes. I mean,
Cassius is the best.
I mean, I had a front row seat to Denzel Valentine, Cassius, every Michigan State player ever giving us triple doubles and scoring 40 points and stuff. Cassius is he's my favorite player I've ever watched, 100%.
Yeah, he's great, and I love that kid. I've got to know those guys really well. I love that kid. So
big time guy.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Somebody didn't mention Xavier Pinson from Mizzou. He's a good little guy.
Stop it.
I went to Mizzou, so I had to throw that in there.
I'm doing a web show on Tuesday with Coach Martin.
Oh wow,
Coach Martin and Mike Brown. We're going to talk about basketball society and try to have a conversation on how we can move forward.
You said on Wednesday?
On Tuesday. What time we're doing? We're doing 3:00 Eastern time. It's on a hall pass. It'll be on. It'll be streamed live on, I think, Facebook Live. It'll also be recorded to be used on all different type of platforms after. It's going to be a really very interesting conversation. Coach Martin is he's a real dude.
That's awesome.
Really,
be sure to check that out.
Yeah, make sure you check that out, and make sure you check out Coach Greenberg calling the games for the TBT. Coming up shortly. There will be basketball this summer, and it all starts with the TBT.
Guys, thanks so much. Be safe. Appreciate
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks again,
You
Coach.
too.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Be well.